Well, let's go ahead and get started. Just sound check. You can. Hello?
Hello.
I can hear you.
Okay, thanks. I just always fear that I'm speaking into the void. We don't have Eric, so I don't see imagine we'll have any updates on the two issues he's addressing. Perhaps he'll come on later. The next issue is one that was raised a couple of weeks ago, and I have asked for advice from the Linux Foundation. I wouldn't call it official, but certainly I've got feedback that they don't have an official policy. They're actually working on something that's helpful, but the guidance is basically, well, first of all, the MIT license is basically less restrictive than Apache 2.0. So in this particular example, there's not really a difficulty. When it's GPL versus Apache, it can get trickier. But the basic recommendation is just document, for example, in the repo README, something to the effect that, SD core, whatever blah is Apache 2.0 licensed, but includes, has dependencies on MIT licensed subcomponents or something to that effect. And we can hope that we don't run into any more serious problems like that.
Larry, I'm curious if you know or have an example of how Apache is more restrictive.
It's only more restrictive in that it's more precise. It's not the legal language is more precise. I think to a first approximation they're roughly equivalent.
Mm-hmm.
But from a legalese, more words were used. Was how I understood it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it sounds like our goal is to be, not restrictive, to be as very inclusive as possible. So it's promising that. Sounds like there are no issues with the MIT license, I guess.
Yeah. That, roughly in principle, they're the same.
Mm-hmm.
So Gabriel, good enough for you?
So does it mean that we can use any dependencies regardless of their license? Do we care about the dependency, the license for the dependencies?
Well, we care. So if it were something other than MIT, then I think we should have a really serious talk about it.
Okay.
You're starting to include GPL licensed material, then you got to be careful. But in this particular case, it's not a big deal. But the advice is that you document that you have imported, that we have a dependency on MIT licensed submodules.
Okay.
We could do that way up in the OMEC project organization document, that little README at the top of the page. I don't know if I can find one. Oh, maybe we don't have it here. I was thinking, well, there is for OnRamp. I was thinking we'd done something like that for, this README. So there can be a project README where you could say that, as opposed to trying to document it every single repo. So I don't know that I would do it here, but in the OMEC project, we add an OMEC project README and note it there.
Okay.
I'll just make note. It's such a rare thing here. It's probably sufficient at the organization README level. Okay. Are you ready to talk about SD Core?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So there are two main things that we have been kind of working on. One, as I mentioned, I think last week and 2 weeks ago, the new Golang dependencies basically now they require the module that is using them to have the Semver format. So basically major, minor, and patch version. So that's something that we have been working since yesterday. Um, After addressing basically this part on the in the modules themselves, so instead of calling, let's say, right now we're using only major and minor. So the module was called Go 1.23, for example. So we need to change it to 1.33.0, and then basically everything is working fine. So that's the changes that we already did, or yes, as of yesterday, all the auxiliary repositories, and now we are going through the primary level functions, basically the repositories that have Docker images. That's one thing.
Do you plan on keeping the patch numbers up to date, or is this just a .0 hack to make it work?
So the that zero basically is we could go all the way to 124, moving to a one version up from the Go perspective. So the key piece is the format itself. That zero I left there because it's basically one of the latest stables. So I know that right now Go is in 124. I think that's 6 at the moment. So I prefer to just leave it in 123, and then later on we can go to 124. Or I don't know whether the dependable can open a automatic updates for the Go version. I haven't seen anything so far, but 123.0 was basically the first stable version from the 123 release.
So maybe I misunderstood, but I thought part of the issue here was you had to assign the full semantic version label to code you were working on, as opposed to referencing other code.
Say one more time, please.
I was wondering, maybe I misunderstood. Golang dependencies require semantic versioning format for the Go module. Any code that
Yes.
you write in Go, you're going to have to put a three-part semantic versioning number on it, correct?
Just in the modules themselves, right? So in the modules, we indicated what is the Go version that they should use, regardless of the tool version or the Go toolbox version that you are using locally to build the code itself.
Okay, thanks.
So the only thing is basically this format to have follow the Semver format. That's it.
Okay, this is not as invasive as I thought it might be.
No, that was pretty straightforward, at least from that perspective, because they also released new because as of 2 weeks ago, the version that were released at that point, they were complaining about the dependencies as well and the YAML version that didn't exist, and that's why I start kind of going through these the different licenses for the dependencies. I think that's what I mentioned about YAML v2 versus YAML v3, but then they release a new version, and with this new version of the dependency, at least I didn't see that requirement of the specific like issues with the YAML and things like that. So I just had to kind of add the patch side to December and everything that it's
Okay.
fine now.
Okay, release 18 progress?
Yes. So I was kind of fully concentrated just before in a single network function, which is the SMF. And I had kind of most of that working, but I had a couple issues in there because there is a few structs that they don't have the same type as they were as it was before. Meaning, for example, there is like the N1 or N2 containers that are carried by the messages from the SMF to the AMF. Before they were kind of like embedded as bytes. Now the new kind of like open API call generator, it creates that double pointer OS that file. which is completely different. So that's what I'm kind of addressing at the moment. But I started with SMF, so to kind of try to figure out all the issues that are gonna be in the network, or they're gonna find. Basically, I move all the network functions to the new release 18. So now I have the full picture of what is failing everywhere. So in the different network functions, and there are kind of like three groups or three buckets where the issues need to be addressed. So callbacks, because OpenAPI generator doesn't handle callbacks yet, so we need to see to kind of handle this in a probably manual way. I haven't tried to find a few ways to do that, but I haven't found any specific way. So for now, is callbacks that need to be addressed probably manually. The other issue, the big issue that I found is that release 15 had several structs that they don't exist anymore. So I need to kind of go through. I have gone through the majority of them and kind of replacing by the proper new struct, but some of them are still missing. So I need to kind of keep digging to see what was before and what is the equivalent now to the one that got removed. And there are other things like the lineage structure got removed, so it doesn't exist anymore. So I don't know how much or how that's going to affect in the AUSF perspective and the authentication side. And then there is these 3GPP specifications are created like individual components, basically each, but some of them are defined, the same struct is defined in multiple places. So basically in one specification is defined and the same name that has some parameters or some variables, and in a different spec uses the same name but uses for a different context. So in that case, there is an overlapping and there is basically a override one and the other. So from that perspective, I need to rename some of those. And during that renaming, I found that there is some additional work that needs to be done on that renaming side. But that's kind of like after the renaming, everything is pretty straightforward because it's a streamline the creation of that code. But yeah, so overall, it's basically a good progress. We have all the network functions at least moving to release 18, and now we need to start just addressing these few issues before I start running some additional tests, some tests actually. This that's just for the service-based interface itself.
Do you venture an ETA for a release?
Not really. At the moment, I don't have an ETA. I mean, this is kind of like a side project. We are fully working on this other project that we have. So this is what I'm trying to kind of any extra time that I have. That's what I'm spending on this. But no, it's not my top priority. I would love to finish this as soon as possible, but it's not. I need to finish some other stuff from work.
Anything else on the core?
I don't know, Ajay, maybe you have something.
AJ?
Not really. I think most of my time has been busy with the code review. Nothing specific I can recall. Like there were one or two cases where Gabriel had pointed me to some community members doing some had some queries and code to be reviewed, which I completed. Yeah. Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
SD-RAN.
So Larry, I just put a couple links in here. We just today published a blog about the report that Remedial Labs conducted, comparing different open source, near real-time RIC open source solutions. And so you can access it. It's on our website. There's also a blog posting. And then I added the SD-RAN Techinar that was done about a week ago. And both of these also have been added to the SD-RAN webpage on the website as well as the wiki.
All right, good, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So this other report related webinar, Techinar, I forget, announcement, what can you say about that?
So what we're doing as we roll out the report by Remedo is working with Alex Stansu. We're gonna be publishing a weekly blog series that goes into a little bit more detail, picking apart the report and really focusing in on Aether values for developers and end users. And this will culminate then in a webinar with Remedo and Aether, with, I believe, you and Alex participating, to really go and bring it all together and talking about the things that were uncovered in the report. So that's in May. So we'll publish a series of weekly blogs, and then in May, on the 27th, we will host a webinar to interview and highlight all the findings from the report.
Great, thank you very much.
Mhm.
All right, and I don't think we have Jean. Anything else anyone has to add to the SD-RAN topic? Right?
Maybe
Go ahead.
something that I reported to Gujon is that I was trying to test the rig with the SRS run. The SRS run capability from the E2 agent perspective is relatively limited. They have just implemented a few procedures. And they claim that they have tested their E2 agent with the OSC rig, the Flex rig, and I think it was Agilent rig or some other kind of like a commercial kind of simulator. When I try to test with the SD-RAN rig, the SD-RAN rig requests or sends the E2 connection update message, but the SRS run doesn't support that specific message. So from what I read from the ORAN specification, this message doesn't seem to be mandatory required. But from the SD-RAN perspective, basically, if it doesn't receive any response, there is the connection stops there. So that's something that may need to be addressed accordingly.
Okay. So you're saying that that particular message is not mandatory, but the SD-RAN RIC requires it.
Requires it, yes. So it sends it. It's an RIC initiated message. So the SD-RAN rig send it four times, and then after it doesn't receive any response, it just gives up and the connection stops. However, from the specification itself, it seems that it is not a required a message, because it says that the rig and the E2 agent should need to be continually communicating with the previous connection if the message update, something goes wrong with this E2 connection update.
All right, thanks.
Mhm.
And maybe you could capture it's the E2 connection update message. Sorry, I'm not in the wiki right now.
Yeah, E2 connection update.
Correct. Yeah, Gujon has cleared this part. I have been kind of like exchanging a few messages with him on this because we're interested in kind of using the Aether rig as part of the project, but this is kind of like a big blocker for us.
Yeah.
All right, so you're not, so that's the one testing. So maybe I'll go back here. I'm just want to capture this in those SRS RAN has been tested with different RICs.
Correct.
Crud, what did I just do? Oh, good.
Is there
Okay.
a Jira opened on this?
No, I haven't opened anything. I just directly kind of like talk to Slack with Wujun.
It, since it's not required, it's not clearly a bug on SRS RAN's part, but one of those ambiguities.
Well, it sounds like a bug in SD-RAN.
Correct.
Yeah.
Well, why does the message exist if it's not supposed to? I mean, this is one of those ambiguous. Yeah, it could be.
Yeah,
It'll be
but
finger pointing in both
it's
directions.
kind of it's kind of confusing. I agree with you. So when I went through the spec, it was kind of like saying, okay, if, the successful message has to be this, then a failure message has to be that. But if nothing works, if something goes wrong, they need to still continue working together with the previous information. So
Yeah. All right, so SD-RAN probably needs to be robust in when it doesn't get that, when there's no reply.
It would be nice to know. I mean, if SRS RAN is claiming to have tested with SD-RAN, and yet there's problems coming up, is there any way to trace back to, who at SRS RAN or in that community did the testing, or?
that's information that I got directly from the SRS RAN development team.
So you're in communication with them, and have you raised this?
Correct.
Have you raised this issue with them?
Yes. So they said, the handling of the E2E connection update successful response message is going to be really challenging on their end. They are open to send a message back, a failure message back, but there is, I mean, that's the other part that I asked kind of Wujun to see how the SD-RAN, the RIC is going to handle a failure message if it receives a failure message. So it's going to continue with the whole communication, or it's just going to stop anyway? Because if it stops working anyway, as currently happening right now, so it makes not much sense for me to ask SRS RAN team to implement the failure message. So yesterday I talked to Wujun. He's in contact with the engineering team, and they are gonna kind of try to do some update, some validation with the RAN simulator to see what the RIC is gonna do if it receives an E2 connection update failure message.
Very good. Actually, I kind of had two questions. You answered the second one. The first one was, if they claim to have gotten it working, but this, there's a fundamental incompatibility, how did they get it working?
I don't know that they claimed they had it working with SD-RAN. They had it working with other RICs.
Yes, the OSC RIC, Flex RIC, and the other one specifically. Let me give you the name of the other one is a simulator, but it's a kind of commercial simulator.
Okay,
Where,
understood then. Thank you for that clarification.
Since they're on this, put the folks from Iowa State on the spot, you're testing it, the RIC with OAI, or are there other examples? Do you want to, or are you working with SRS RAN as well?
Hi Larry, this is Arslan here. I'm not sure if Tiani is here in the call. So Tiani, could you so to my knowledge, I think we haven't worked. I can speak for Plugfest, but maybe on the research side, Tiani can confirm if we have tested SRS RAN or not.
Yeah,
Maybe
sure.
Joshua did some experiment, right, Tiani? But on the Plugfest side, we have so far in the two Plugfest, our testing was mainly focused I mean, the DU we have used was from OAI, not from SRS-LAN.
Yeah, many use OAI, not SS yet.
Okay.
The OAI version that you guys use is the open source, the kind of the upstream OAI version, or the one that
Yep,
created
that's correct.
by ONF?
No. The open source version directly from the GitHub repo. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Wait a minute. So yes, we do like add the library from like the OIC, the Open Fronthaul library to the OAI.
So you're doing your own integration with the ONF pieces.
Yeah.
Okay. Any more on that topic?
Nope.
All right. Interesting update. All right, on-ramp, not a lot to report. We did get a blueprint to show how to configure on-ramp to support GNODBs that were not directly connected to the same subnet as the core. And that's been incorporated. Not really much else going on there right now.
One thing just probably to mention in the on-ramp side, I have been working with this student, I think is doing a master's degree on Italy, and he's kind of getting familiar with the whole Aether project. And one of the contributions is about these service monitors that were directly put into the AMP instead of kind of being done directly on their network functions. So he already opened a PR yesterday for the metric funk. That PR got merged today, and I'm kind of after I finish to do this whole dependencies issues that with the Go version, Go Semver format. I'm planning to kind of create new Docker images, and then there's going to be a new release for a new Helm charts version that we use in on-ramp. And then at that point, we can approve the PR that he opened for AMP, where the SMF monitor service gets removed from there because it's not needed anymore. The information will come directly from the metric funk as it should be, it should have been done. And later on, hopefully he has also some time to also integrate the UPF into the metric funk. So we can have a single place for all the components into a single point for the different metrics, and we can have a better visibility of the entire thing. And he also has opened one PR for the Ether 5GC. I understand that Bilal was reviewing it, but I don't know whether that's complete or whether at some point you guys can merge that, of course, after reviewing and testing. I haven't looked into the details of that PR.
So just to make sure I recorded this right, and what I understand is that he's working to eliminate the remnants of per NF monitoring. You always go through the metric funk.
Yeah, that would
Got
be
it.
yeah.
That's nice. Very nice.
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't put ARA on the agenda, but we can certainly talk about it. I know you guys have been busy with the proposal. Are there any updates you want to talk about, or anybody else have topics?
Not really from my side. Yeah.
All right. We give everybody back half an hour. Thanks. Until next time. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.